What if some of the most difficult classroom behaviours aren't students choosing to misbehave at all? What if they're stress responses? Because when the brain perceives a threat, there's a small structure called the amygdala that can take over, shifting students out of logical thinking and into a survival mode response. And once that happens, reasoning, memory, self-control all begin to shut down. As psychologist Dr. Bruce Perry explains, a dysregulated child cannot learn. The amygdala is a small structure deep within the limbic system of the brain. Its job is for survival. It constantly scans for danger and reacts faster than logic can. This creates three major stress responses: fight, flight, or freeze. And in schools, these responses don't look dramatic, they look behavioural. Let's run through the responses. So fight response, imagine a student refusing to hand over their phone. The teacher pushes harder and the student escalates. Voices rise and now both are emotionally charged. From the outside, it looks like the student is defying the teacher, but neurologically, the student's brain may have already perceived a threat, loss of control, public embarrassment, social exposure. All big ticket items for teenagers. The amygdala activates and then the survival behavior takes over. At that point, the brain is not prioritizing logic or consequences anymore, it's prioritizing protection. And the difficult part is, teachers have amygdalas too. So we're capable of also stepping into a fight, flight, or freeze state of mind. For teachers, this occurs when they feel disrespected, challenged, or emotionally cornered, and their own stress response can activate as well, which is why escalation often becomes reciprocal. Let's look at another scenario now, the freeze response. Now imagine a student called into a meeting after an incident. Suddenly they go quiet. They can't explain themselves and they are struggling to recall details correctly. From the outside, or from somebody giving the interview, it may look like they're being dishonest or avoidant or lying to stay out of trouble. That student's experiencing a threat, entering the meeting room, but this time the freeze response takes over. And this happens when the brain feels trapped or overwhelmed. The nervous system reduces action. Speech slows. Thinking narrows. The student isn't necessarily refusing to respond or answer questions. It's just that their stress response is interrupting their ability to do so. This makes it extremely difficult for some students to answer questions when they're being called into meetings. Let's look at the last option, the flight response. Now imagine a student who begins avoiding maths completely, takes bathroom breaks, absences, distraction, anything except for engaging in the subject. And this is the one that we see a lot in schools. From the outside, it can look lazy. It can look like they just hate the subject. But what's actually occurring is that student probably has a legitimate reason why they're acting that way. It may be repeated failure or anxiety that's created enough stress for them, for the brain to begin to associate maths with threat. And then the flight response kicks in, and it's all about escape. Escaping not from the work itself, but from the emotional state that's attached to it. Neuroscientist Dr. Daniel Siegel says, you have to name something to tame it. And because we understand the response, we can stop interpreting every behavior as intentionally defiant, as in that student's just being bad, that's a naughty student. And we can take a deeper step into it and find out the reason why that behavior is actually occurring, and if it is an amygdala hijack. Flight, fight, or freeze may look completely different in the classroom, but neurologically they all come from the same point of view. That's why when we talk about strategies to combat these three things, we can actually apply pretty similar strategies across all of the situations. Remember, the amygdala responds to threat or stress, and usually something that causes enough stress or threat to them will be able to respond to the same strategies. A few strategies that we can employ. The first being pause before escalating. This is really, really important. It gives a buffer in there, especially if your amygdala is starting to trigger as well. If you pause, you can have a think about what you want to do before you move forward. The second thing that's really important to do is to lower emotional intensity. Bringing down the mood that's occurring, reducing the tension, all the signals that everything's going to be okay. If you're able to bring the emotion back to a regulated state, then that student's more likely to not have that fight, flight, or freeze response. Number 3, regulate yourself first. If you're regulated, you can model the mood and the behaviour that the student should follow. If you're able to stay calm and cool, the situation probably won't escalate in the first place, and you'll also be able to guide the student with a level head. Remember, if the student is in survival mode, it's going to be incredibly hard to negotiate with them or even tell them what's going on using logic. Their brain's not in that mode anymore. They're trying to survive. Another strategy that you can use is creating enough psychological safety for the brain to re-engage with thinking. This one is a bit tricky because it depends on the situation in which they went into that first. One thing you can do, let's say you've taken them into the meeting and then they're frozen. You could take them to a different space instead of that. Have the meeting on a basketball court, for example. Because then that connection between, oh, I'm getting in trouble and I'm in a meeting room isn't there. It seems like a more casual environment. You can still talk about serious stuff, but they'll feel psychologically safe in that environment because they'll be in control of what they're doing. That's a simple set of strategies, and I'm sure you can think of a few for yourself. But remember, it's all about reducing that initial threat that's perceived by the student in order to get them back into a state where they're thinking properly. The goal is not controlling the behavior first, it's reducing threat enough to make learning possible again. You can't reason with a brain that still feels unsafe.